Welcome to Film Study and All-American Universe podcast with Lexi. I'm Lexi. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all those nice, wonderful, amazing things. Oh man, R.I.P. R.I.P. Billy Baker. We're talking about episode 512, Lost One, which is the episode where Laura got to have sort of grief storyline A, and we'll be following Jordan, Liv, and Spencer in the next couple episodes. But this one was Laura, so hope that you enjoy our thoughts on this. And here they are. By the way, have Kemberlie back on the pod. Forgot to say that, but here we go. Whew. All right. What were your thoughts on this episode? What would you rate it?
About a 7 out of 10. Just because I thought the funeral part
7
would
out of
be
10.
like a little bit, a little bit more dramatic and like bigger than what they kind
Gotcha.
of made it because it was Tay Diggs. But what
Yeah,
about you?
I was surprised that they had the funeral be so early on in the episode. Jameel Turner wrote this one. Michael Schultz directed this one. I'd give it a. I feel like I'd give it like an 8.5, only because I was super impressed with like the performances of a lot of the actors. So yeah, I think the performances knocked it out, and I think some of the writing I think was like understated, but I think it's gonna come back up later. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
8.5 ish, 8.5. Um, but I wanted to start off with like what they had Laura say. A very wise man once said, "Life is a series of losses, but losses breed lessons, and lessons create blessings." Then she goes on to say that she can't necessarily find her strength. And it's interesting because she goes on to say something about expectations of grief and expectations of strength can make people push down how they're really feeling. I feel like that was a really great intro to the episode as we got those like sort of the montage of Laura just like sitting in the bed, sort of exhausted, Liv tossing and turning, Jordan at her side, while Liv is tossing and turning, and they're sleeping in the same room. And then GW coming back, and everybody getting prepped for the funeral. Um, I think it was a really cool way to open the story, and I think something that's crazy is that this is like All American reaches a lot of people, and so many people have had opinions on. It really feels like we lost a member of like in real life, like somebody in real life that we all loved. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or in general we all loved, right? Not every single person.
Mm-hmm.
But because so many people have had opinions and so many people have sort of been angry at this storyline, so many people feel like I've seen a lot of like I don't think this you know episode was sort of emotional enough. I don't necessarily love
Mm-hmm.
how like the actors played XYZ, and I think it's really interesting
Yeah.
to see those expectations be placed on this story because of the weight of Billy's character, and I feel like that mimics what happens in real life with grief. And I'll say this personally. Again, I thought the actors did a tremendous job of showing how different people respond to grief, and that they don't respond to grief in the same ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that intro and that line, that quote from her, was poignant. But
Mm-hmm.
to get into the episode, I'm gonna switch down to the almighty community. I wasn't trying to laugh. Someone, by the
Good
way, speaking
job.
of people taking this grief right super seriously and this storyline affecting so deeply, someone, shout out to whoever wrote this, but someone was just like, I don't like that you were laughing so much. Like, like in my last podcast episode. I'm like, whoa, sorry. I mean, I'm finna laugh, but sorry that it affected you like that.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I'll try to temper my laughter for you, kind person. Um,
Right.
but uh, getting back to the community. Obviously, this episode, and we'll get back to Laura's reaction, but this episode was all about sort of Laura trying to learn how to deal with her grief, trying to learn how to really just like survive and live in a world post Billy, uh, and trying to figure out how
Mm.
to truthfully get this funeral out of the way, because it's all like Billy's death was very sudden. So it's very sudden for them all, and they're
Mm.
all just trying to figure out what's the next move. Um,
Yeah.
and part of that was that she didn't want to make this big thing with the community and with everybody else. Um, everybody else's grief that extends to Crenshaw and whoever else.
Mm.
But she wasn't a fan. She was just like, I want to keep it to us, close friends, family, no more than 15 people. And looking in that church, it was like no more than 10 people. But
Literally like 10 people. I was
I
like,
was like, where
where's
the
her
other five
mom?
at?
Where's like,
I don't even think I remember seeing like GW like pan to in the. Did we see GW pan to in the church? Now that I'm thinking about it, I
I,
don't
the panning
remember
of like
seeing
the
him.
funeral was so weird to me. Like they didn't at first show like one part everyone's laughing. They didn't show Jordan. They didn't show Spencer, but they didn't show Jordan. And then one part where they were panning, they didn't show Layla at first. Then they finally showed it. So it was like the weirdest type of cut they
Yeah,
did to like try to do that part. I was just like, okay.
I agree. And then just I don't know, like the where everybody was seated, and I don't know if that was intentional. Like Spencer was seated closer to the back, probably to reference, and we'll get back to this, but probably to reference that he was trying to, push his grief process to
Mm,
the back burner and all that. But it was really interesting how that the blocking, I'd say, of that scene and then the eventual
yeah.
like editing of that scene ended up. Um
Mm.
let me say this right now. The pastor was just like, we can accommodate more people. And Laura was like, look, I don't care about your accommodations. I don't care about
He was
your,
like,
I
oh,
don't
this
care
is
what you can
Billy.
accommodate. I want no more than 15 people here, just close
Mm.
friends and family. Um, which again, it ended up being that, like we said, we mentioned there was like 10 people there. Um, I'll say this,
Mm.
too, a couple of things. Was it me or was the choir kind of off? Sorry.
I was back at the choir and I was like, well, they're small. I get it. It was so small. I really don't remember what song they were singing. Like,
It was
uh,
when Jesus is my
I just know they
portion.
was
I
mumbling
love
some
it.
words. Um,
But like, I don't know. It felt like they were all felt like they were trying to harmonize. I think it's really I think it's really hard to harmonize live on a like
mm,
on a set, because you can't really hear yourself and there's so
mm,
many things going on. So that's why they often have things
mm,
pre-recorded so that like you can sing along to the track. But I don't feel like this was
mm.
pre-recorded. Like I actually felt like they were
Oh my! It probably was. Like looking back, like the funeral in itself, I was like, y'all could have put a little more effort into the situation. Like the only I felt one part I felt when Denise was like, "Take your time, baby." I said that's a real black person. So like, they made that as a funeral reference for sure because they would say
You
that.
know what? And I'm glad that you said that, because the other time that I felt that, and I think that's realistic, because the what is it like? Laura's Laura's white. To be transparent right now, Laura's
Mm,
white, and the
mm,
twins and some of the Beverly folks, like they even though they're a lot of them mixed, they grew up in a very like white neighborhood. So it was so funny that they had. I loved these. This is how you know black writers are in the room, because explaining what a repass is to JJ,
literally.
They were just like, "Oh, it's a funeral after party," and I'm like,
Literally. I was like, why are we explaining this to him? And then I had to think about like why we explaining this whole situation to him in the first place. I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, they're really explaining it to him. But then I thought about it, and I don't know, just going into like JJ part real quick. But I was like, I wonder if they explained that because it was trying to take up for his drinking because he was like, oh, it's a
mm.
party. So let me,
That's
celebration, let me drink something.
interesting. Oh, see, I thought that they were explaining it because it was as a way of explaining to the broader audience what a repast is and what black culture um is, because
Mm,
they also had that moment where and this was so subtle, I loved it, but I've mentioned several times that I've grown up in church, and the fact that Spencer asked if it was okay to have Billy's picture on the pulpit is
yeah,
such a
that's
black
true.
church thing. Is such a black church thing. Like, we can't
Hmm.
just be putting the picture up. We gotta ask. We gotta ask the pastor
Mm-mm, no,
if it's
I
okay.
do.
So yeah,
Mm,
I appreciated the little touches. I do wish that this is the problem with having a show that's like you have to stay within 42 minutes, because I feel like there was more. I definitely feel like there was more, and it like these scenes probably
mm,
just got cut and spliced. Um
mm.
but it was interesting hearing Preach do the little, right. It wasn't the official eulogy because Liv was doing the official eulogy,
Yeah,
but it was like a word of encouragement. And he mentioned that like Billy, like they had dance battles and like thanked him for giving him a job so he could help his
mhm,
daughter and XYZ. Um,
mhm.
and it's so funny because Spencer and Laura, like, that got a smile from everybody except those two. Did you notice that?
And I don't think we did we. Yeah, I don't think we saw Jordan's reaction, did we?
We did. He like gave a brief. I think he gave a
Oh,
brief,
okay.
like little small smile. I think. I
Oh, okay.
think. Um,
That's just
but
saying. The
yeah,
parts of the funeral to me, they kept just handing it to certain people, so I was just like,
I
I
agree.
guess, because like when the smiling parts, it was like sometimes you saw one of them smile, and then one part you didn't see it. Like I thought in the scene they didn't show him smile, or they didn't show him smiling. Like we didn't actually see it, but they showed Spencer smiling and Laura not
Right.
smiling.
Right.
So it
Exactly.
was weird the way they
Exactly.
cut it.
Yeah, it was. And I think it was just like, and also I think that Laura and Spencer not smiling was to show that they weren't really in a place to yeah, just weren't really in a place to smile, whereas everybody else at least had a little
Mm,
small chuckle. um
mm,
More on the community, and I'll include the Beverly community in this as well. To your point about the repast being an after party, uh JJ showed up. Okay, Liv said that JJ was drunk. JJ showed up having had some sips, according to him, some sips of bourbon.
mm,
But given Liv's reaction, it felt like it was a little bit more than sips, because she said that he reeked, right, of bourbon. Um,
mm,
and I'm being so careful about how I describe this, because there were opinions. There were opinions on
mm.
this scene of JJ showing up the way that he did. By the way, he did actually miss the repast. He missed the entire repast. Showed up when it was over because like
Yeah.
the food was put away in the fridge, people were gone, Liv was doing dishes. Um
And
and
he even said that he dropped Asher off or something like that.
which, do you believe
Like he
that?
dropped Asher off at the hospital, the doc. No, I was like, what are you talking about? What was wrong with his arm? I didn't get his hand or something. Like I was like, huh? That didn't make no type of sense to me when he was like, yeah, I dropped Asher off at the doctor because for his hand. That was like, that didn't
Oh,
really
he said
make
for his
sense.
hand?
Like,
Did my like mind just
yeah, for his arm
autocorrect
and
and he
hand.
dropped him off to like help Jamie or something?
No, he literally said, I went to the doctor to check on my. Oh, maybe he was covering for him. But he literally said, "Hey, I'm dropping off." He said, "I'm dropping him off for his arm," and nobody questioned. I mean, well, Liv didn't question it because I was like, "That." I
Interesting.
guess he was trying to cover up the secret of Jamie in the pregnancy because maybe he didn't tell everybody, so he was just trying to. I guess that's what I think that's what he was trying to do. But yeah, when he said arm, I was so confused. Injury, I was. It was, and it clicked to like now, and I was like, "Huh."
That's crazy. Yeah, that didn't even hit me. Um but yeah, regardless, that's how he showed up, and Liv said what she said about him smelling like bourbon, and did you show up here drunk, and I
Mm,
can't even believe that you did this, that you're choosing today, essentially get out. Layla comes, is like, what's going on, because it's getting a little bit louder. And she's just like,
mm,
JJ showed up drunk, and I can't take the lies, and so yeah, again, get out. And Liv walks off.
I thought that was
Layla,
foreshadowing.
yes, yes. And then Liv walks off, and Layla says to JJ, like, you're literally trash. Um,
Mm,
Again, the interesting thing is, I feel like no one's reaction was wrong, right? Like, having drinks when somebody passes away is completely normal. I think is a completely
mm,
normal response. So
mm,
too is Liv, right? Being a recovering
mm,
addict, this is your parents' repass, and this is your home. And you see
mm,
one of your friends show up drunk, given all of that context, like you're a recovering addict who struggled with alcohol recently. Recently, in the probably about a year now, a year or so removed, maybe a year and a half.
mm.
Um, and
Probably.
again, your dad just died, and it's this whole context. Plus, Layla's end of knowing that your best friend is dealing with all that, dealing with her dad. Um,
Mm,
Also your boyfriend, like, this is your boyfriend's dad's like repass. And again, your friend is showing up drunk.
mm,
So I think
mm,
all of those reactions are valid, and all of them have a place. I think just naturally I tend to sympathize a little more with Liv and Layla's end of it. Uh because again, it's just like,
mm,
and not counting the context that we know about JJ, he might be struggling with alcoholism, which Liv was just an episode ago or 2 episodes ago. She was like, you should probably get a handle on that. You've been drinking a
mhm.
lot. But again, like, I don't think
Yep.
she's in the space to be thinking about all of that. Um, but I completely understood. Like, you choose it. I don't know. I was putting myself in this situation, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know. You couldn't ask me not to say anything if in my mind, like, somebody was acting out during my family members repass. Um, Miss the whole
Yeah,
event
like
just
he,
to show up
yeah,
drunk.
yeah. Like I probably would have said the same thing to him. Honestly, I felt that they had every right to say that, especially Layla and Liv, because like she said, it's my dad's funeral, my repast. Like it wasn't your time to come in there, be drunk, and think that was okay. Like, and then go look for food. Like, if you knew you wasn't gonna come, I really would kick them out, bed kick them out. But I was like, you could have just stayed in your car, something else besides coming inside, because you know that this was your friend's dad who passed away, and it was difficult on her. Like, you can tell all of them. So it's like, why do that and then think that everything was gonna be cool. And I thought the comments was valid. Like I felt everything that she said. Like I don't get why people are mad about that. I get it in some ways, but to like be like, oh, she's a hypocrite for calling out JJ. No, she called him out because it's their dad passed away. Like y'all not gonna tell me that if something comes to your house and do the same thing, y'all just gonna be okay. Oh, well, we gotta be comfortable. We have to do all this because JJ is going through. No, I'm gonna do what I need to do and keep it moving because it's not the time or the place.
Yeah, a time,
Yeah.
a time and a place. That's me. Is a time and a place. And to that point, again, I don't think that Layla and Olivia were upset that JJ was drinking, like just the act of drinking, or that he felt like that was what he needed to do to cope. That's not what they were upset about.
Mm,
It was the greater context of, in my mind, right? You show up, you miss the event, you're
mm,
seemingly drunk, again, in the presence of a recovering addict whose dad just died.
mm, mhm,
And that's triggering. Like, that's no way, matter which way you slice it, that's triggering for Liv. That's triggering for Layla, watching Liv go through a similar thing to what she went through a couple years ago with her mom passing away.
mm,
Um, in terms of losing a
mm,
parent. So yeah, and to, I mean, obviously, and we know that JJ is struggling, and I not making light of that. And so I don't think anybody's reaction in that situation was not valid. Um, and personally, for me, I just tend to naturally sort of sympathize uh, with Olivia and Layla. But wanted to talk about that because again, people had a lot of opinions, and I think it goes back to what I said at the top. Is just that, like, this this storyline of Billy's death has really hit a chord with people in real life. Like, art imitates life,
mhm,
and so people, like, are really, I think, being triggered by a lot of the things that they're dealing with in the show, and a lot of the reactions that they're dealing with in the show.
mhm.
Another reaction that folks got triggered by, Laura and Jabari, right? Laura seemingly
Mm,
blaming, and I'll talk about it from Jabari's end. Jabari sort of trying to figure out when to go see the family or whatever, and Laura not
mm,
necessarily being keen on inviting him in. Obviously, he comes. Spencer lets him in early at the repass, and she's just like, why is he here? Essentially, kicks him out of the repass.
mhm,
At some point in time, this is probably after the incident with the potatoes, which we'll get back to, but at some point kicks him out. Jordan eventually calls him up and tells him that it wasn't Jabari's fault, and that Billy would have gone back for any one of his players. Eventually, Laura comes around and she's just like, you know what? Billy gave up his life for you. So, with that, you have to honor him and honor the sacrifice that he made. And, Jabari was like, I give you my word. And she was like, look, sir, look, sir, your word isn't good enough. Your word ain't good enough. And I'm like, "Ugh." She said, I need a commitment. I don't know. I love that line because I feel like that's so true. She was just like, look, I'm not even
mm,
taking your word right now. My husband died. Like, I'm going to need to see some results. I just feel like that's so true to grief.
yeah. Especially now because that's gonna weigh on Jabari more too. Because like now he's got to figure out if he's what he's about to do in his life. Is he about to go to Coastal and actually be the star player? Is he about to stand up for his community? Like he has a lot to think about now because, like you said, like Laura said, he sacrificed his life for you, and in the end, you have to do what you need to do in order to live to his name. Well, not his name, but what he did for you,
Yeah,
in
live
a
up to that
sense.
sacrifice. Live up to that sacrifice. Like, you got,
Mm-hmm.
in intents and purposes, like, right, what did Asher say? I got a second chance at life. So you got a second chance at life, and what are you
Mm-hmm.
gonna do about it? And speaking of Asher, to that point, Asher was also thinking about that, and what he said is that, Coach Baker would want him to spend this opportunity, this close call, into a positive. Right before he told JJ that he was going to be a dad, when JJ was doing a mental health check on him.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like Asher is going to, and we could see this coming, right, with the interviews that NK had, but Asher is going to
Mm-hmm.
really use this opportunity to not fall back into, maybe would have fallen back into season 3 and prior.
Mm-hmm. Especially now as a kid. So
gonna be a
He
whole
ain't doing
daddy.
too much like that
He's
no
gonna
more.
be a whole father.
Man,
That's crazy.
if they're gonna do anything to Jamie.
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yes. We already touched on JJ. It looks like he's struggling with again. He's struggling with an addiction himself. He's and to that point, this is something that I missed at the top when we were talking about him and the repass. Is that he really hasn't been around much. He really hasn't been
Mm-mm.
around much. Like we haven't seen him since we steadily haven't seen him since around episode 6, um, when he sort of had his big blow up and left. But other than that, we've seen him once, and that was sort of get back on track with Asher. Um, and yeah, he's really sort of removed himself from his friends. And even at the end there, like
Mm-hmm.
with the memorial service on Billy Baker Field, he was even standing outside of the fence. So it'll be interesting to follow up on his story and see where that goes down the line. Obviously, being
Mm-hmm.
kicked out of the baker's house for that moment, right? I feel like, you know, Olivia, Layla, they'll calm down. So it was not like a never ending thing, right? Like a never come back around here again. But it'll be interesting
Mm-hmm.
to see what that story is moving forward because that was a little bit of a cliffhanger for JJ. Let me take this moment to do the aside on this random patient storyline that got placed in this episode, and for the
Yeah.
life of me I cannot figure out why.
I was trying to remember who the person was. Like trying to like who
It
was
was the
Nico? I was
fan.
like,
It
is
was
that
the
the
super
fan
fan
that
that she
she
ate
met?
lunch with. Yes.
That was so random. Well, from the first meeting, I thought it was something, but I was like, it was just kind of random now how they placed it because I was like, what that has
I
to
just
do
think
with
it
anything
didn't
that's going
belong in
on
this
right now?
episode. Yeah. I just think it didn't belong in the episode. I think that's something that you can bring back. And I understand that they have Chelsea for a limited time and they can't like abandon everything. But for the episode after Billy's
Mm,
passing, I feel like you can pause on this story and not include it for like maybe another episode. Like I feel like it could have gone in one of the other grieving episodes and still the same effect would have been had. Like we would still have enough time to build the story
mm,
up. But it in this one it was just like really we're really seeing patients deal with a crazed fan right now. I feel like there's so much more that we should be focusing on other than spending time on seeing patients avoid text
literally
messages from this girl. And it didn't take up a lot of time, so it wasn't even about the time, it felt so unnecessary
weird.
and weird,
Because they could have
exactly.
placed that. They could have placed that. Yeah, in any other episode. Well, I really feel like it wouldn't have fit in the other episodes because it's really isn't about her. If she doesn't want to be in the episodes, because it's not really about her in these next episodes to me, unless they just trying to put people, in some stories besides the other characters we're supposed to be seeing. So I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing with me is I'm like I would have I still don't feel like it would have been a perfect fit in the other episodes, but I think especially in the next episode after Billy died, it just felt like I think, once we get into Liv being the A story, they're starting to get sort of more back into life. And I think the further along we get in these grief episodes where, Laura gets the A, Liv gets the A, Jordan gets the A, like the further along we go, and then Spencer gets the A, the further along we go into those episodes, the more
Mm-hmm.
closer to like, in quotation marks, normalcy we'll get. So, like, there's opportunities to place that
Mm-hmm.
patient's storyline in one of the other episodes. I just don't think this one was it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was it at all. But again, I think it's just like I understand that y'all have Chelsea for a limited number of episodes, but again, y'all couldn't just like This could have been one of those things that you just like caught us up on the next time she was there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this
Literally.
is gonna be like some stalker thing. Like you could have just, caught us up on it. Like Patience could have just said in passing, like, "Oh yeah, she was like sending me these crazy texts," and I think that would have been fine. I think we still would have got the storyline. We still would have got the
Mm-hmm.
gist. It just would have been distracting from more important things at
Mm-hmm.
hand. Anyway, I know that
Literally.
was a random aside, but that's how I felt it happened in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Literally.
it's weird. I feel like Liv and Jordan were almost like if Laura's the A, Spencer's the B, Jordan and Liv are the C. Um, again, we started
Mm-hmm.
off with them sleeping in the same room. Um, Patience is helping Liv make up the bed. Liv is really trying to figure out how to help her mom. Let me say this: Sam killed it. Sam killed it.
Yeah,
Like
she did.
Liv looked
Mm-hmm.
horrible, like just awful. It looked like she didn't get any sleep.
Makeup
Eh,
and all. Yeah.
literally, and I was just like, I mean, hats off to the makeup department. But I was also like, Sam, like, did you legitimately like not get sleep to prepare for this role, or is the makeup department just doing an amazing job? It was almost like, bare-faced makeup, and it really like we really saw how like young Olivia is in this episode. Like she just looked like a young girl who was lost, and I think that was, again, hats off to Sam,
Mm-hmm.
hats off to the makeup department for that. Um, she asked Spencer, how Jabari is doing. She has a whole conversation with Spencer. On her end of that conversation, she says that she has to do the eulogy and she doesn't really know where to start. And so Spencer encourages her to start with, her dad is, since she can't talk about him in the
Mm-hmm.
past tense. Um, so again, that was
Mm-hmm.
about her, and she was like just trying to do whatever she could to help her mom and trying to do whatever she could to make it through the funeral, to make it through the eulogy. Simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
Jordan is trying to be the rock of the family, the man of the family, the man of the Baker house. And the first time we see him, he's really like being vulnerable with Layla because he's trying to go find his dad's blue suit. He calls her because he can't go into the closet and
Mm-hmm.
get it. Again, she encourages him and she's like, if it's okay, we'll go into the closet, we'll get it together. After reassuring him that, like, essentially what happened to his dad is life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
these are just such sad moments. It's really hard to talk about this. Um, anyway, they were leaning on each other.
Yeah.
I felt like in this episode, it's specifically Liv was leaning on Jordan a lot. I think, and Jordan was stepping up a lot, but eventually Liv is like unable to read the eulogy. Jordan steps in. Um, and it took me I watched this episode 3 times, and it took me until the third watch to realize that he said he'd love to know more about his dad, in addition to the fact that he loved the color blue. And so that was just such an interesting
Mm-hmm.
line to me, and I think it was indicative of like Liv and Jordan in this whole episode, like, right, like Liv later telling Spencer like my dad was my everything, um and Jordan trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how to take on like the weight of the world and the responsibility of Liv and Laura, and not really taking
Mm-hmm.
time for himself. Obviously, he has that moment with Layla later where she's just like, you know, take some time for you, duck out, and he's just like, I gotta think about Liv and my mom, and she's just like, I'll take care of him. Go. He talks to GW, where they talk about fireworks, the color blue, boys to
Mm-hmm.
men, etc. And so it's just like he was just trying to Liv was trying to like figure out how to put into words her feelings, and I feel like Jordan was like on a mission to know more about his dad. So what did you think about like those two storylines for the two of them?
I liked it because it leads into, well, especially Liv's whole episode of her just trying to, have that closure and feel like she is, being okay with this, but also not being okay because, like you saw at the end, like she's trying to make a difficult decision if she's gonna relapse or not. So I
Right.
feel like she was she was doing her best. Like she said, she was trying to figure out how to help her mom, and she couldn't really help her mom. So then she's like thinking about that, then thinking about okay, like you said, Spencer said that to her, her dad was everything to her, and like she helped the community. And now that's thinking of like just little small moments. You kind of can tell like Liv was trying to be supportive and stuff, and then trying to get that smile, but it really didn't work. So then she's just trying to think of things that didn't really work. And even at the funeral, she was just kind of sitting there, like she had a smile, but she couldn't even get through the whole eulogy. She couldn't even say the eulogy. Like Jordan had to come up there and help her. So it was interesting to
Right.
see just how she's taking it, but how she's really going to take it in the next episode. Like as to come on stuff, but just how she really deals with that, and that's probably going to be Sam's best acting she has done on the show. So I'm really intrigued to kind of see that part too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like Liv was like trying to I think you said it well. It's like she was trying to smile in the entire episode and never quite reached smiling. Um and obviously
Mm-hmm.
like she was a daddy's girl. We all know that about Liv. Uh all the way back
Mm-hmm.
to her being the first person to forgive him, right? What after the whole affair happened.
Mm-hmm.
So she was really taking this hard, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this leads into her episode. We do not have the synopsis yet, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this leads into her episode. If it's going to be a very very emotional episode.
No, I was saying like even for Jordan, like we really, he had those small moments where like he'll talk to Layla, or small moments where he was with himself. But to me, I don't feel like he fully had that cry moment or that
Yeah,
breakdown yet.
exactly.
Like it actually happened because like you said, we watched his father die in front of him. So you just instantly trying to step up and be everything to everyone, like Spence is, that can weigh on you. And I'm like,
Yeah,
him and Spence, I feel like hopefully we'll have a conversation about that in the future, hopefully. Just them kind of talking because in the episode, yeah, they have the moment with everybody, but at the same time, we saw Jordan have like with that small smile with Layla and stuff like that, or in the end, but like we really haven't seen him fully process it yet,
yeah,
or just he took that time to himself, but fully like boohoo, like get mad if he's going to get mad, like we may see Spencer do, we'll probably see Spencer do that, but we haven't really got that with him. Like it was all about me stepping up, especially with Jabari in that scene. I felt like he was just trying to
yeah.
make sure everything was okay.
And that's interesting because now that I'm thinking about it, it's like when Layla said like, "Hey, if you need to duck out and clear your head," um, she was really saying that so he could take some time for himself. And he sat with himself for like a couple of seconds, and then to your point, it then became about telling Jabari that it wasn't his fault. Then it became about organizing this
Mm-hmm.
memorial, which he went to Layla and was just like, "Now I gotta throw this memorial,
Mm-hmm.
right? I gotta throw this memorial for my dad." And then her being like, "Are you sure you're okay with your mom not being okay with that?" Also, I don't shout out to
Mm-hmm.
the lines that they gave Layla in terms of I really truly think that she was the only one like in this episode explicitly or like who stated these things um to like as they're offering advice or offering suggestions to be like, would it be okay, are you if you did this, are you okay if we do this? And so like obviously people were checking in and saying like,
Yeah.
are you okay, to people, but like in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
suggesting things being like, and are you really okay with like this
Mm-hmm.
actually happening, like this action taking place?
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to that. But to your point, I think yeah, Jordan hasn't dealt with it. I think this is something I want to
He
talk about.
keeps moving from one end to the other.
Yeah,
Yeah, like he
He
keeps
didn't really
moving from
follow.
one
He
one thing
did
to
follow
the
Layla's advice, but then it just like it quickly went away because it was now I gotta help Jabari and now I gotta plan the memorial.
mm,
So very interested to
mm,
see where his storyline goes from here, especially because it is so closely aligned in terms of like him not necessarily processing his grief with what's happening with Spencer. And we'll get back to
mm,
Spencer in a second. But so it'll be
mm,
interesting to see how the writers navigate that because they it is such a similar story they're telling with both Jordan and Spencer. Um, so yeah,
mm. Even with Layla too.
even with Layla too, right? Like we've seen her. Will we see Layla grieve? Like we've seen her cry. She was crying throughout the episode. She had watery eyes throughout the episode, but it definitely seems like she's stepping up. Like Liv thanks Spencer for being the glue for the family. He's stepping up, and you know, we've seen Layla step up too for
Mm,
both Jordan and Liv. Um,
mm,
getting all right.
mm.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. Tell me that plate wasn't huge. Tell me that plate wasn't huge.
I kept trying to figure what was on the plate. It looked
Yo,
like random
she
items. I was like, is this the
she
chicken? And what is this?
stockpiled that plate. I was just like, did somebody bring sushi? Is that sushi on the plate?
It did look like that.
She was just
I
like,
was
my man,
like,
my
oh,
man, my
side note too.
man.
Why was I was like confused because I keep trying to figure out what this GW when he talked to Jordan and then at the end he was just looking like why did the camera do that? Like the camera just kind of walked like I don't know if he was trying to laugh or what he was
With
doing or like it
GW,
just
see,
the weird angle
I
of
took
him.
that as
Yeah, it was,
GW being like understanding what's going on for Jordan and Layla. Like, what was his line? It was just like, oh, she comes bearing something, right? Um, but
gifts or something. Yeah.
her coming was a nod to, and him smiling was a nod to like Jordan being taken care of because he saw that like Layla was coming to check on him, coming with food, um, etc. That's another story for another day. But I think Jordala won over some people last night. Another story for another day. But seeing with everybody seeing how Layla was helping him. Um, but yeah, so I assume that it was because he was
Mm.
approving, right? He was approving. This is the last thing. Like I said, I hope that I'm curious to see where Jordan's story goes. I hope that they don't drop the fact that he said he wants to know more about his dad. And him being really shocked. Like these are such small, subtle moments, but him being really shocked that like some of these things that he's finding out about his dad, and then he asks, and he's just like, and I want to know more about my dad. We want to know more about my dad. So he invited everybody to come up and say
I think he'll struggle with that.
some words. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Because I'm like, I I feel like, and I hope that they don't just drop this that Jordan might not feel like he actually like fully knew his dad. And I don't know. I just feel like the seeds were planted for that. But can we talk about
Especially
when he invited people to come up and speak? I was just like, Coop and
it
patience,
was
why
so
you getting
I don't know.
someone explain to me why Coop and
We never
patience
have we
got
ever had a
up.
scene with Quason? Well, the Coop had a scene
A
with
singular
Patience. I don't
scene
think
where she
Patience
was
have she?
emceeing his birthday like 2 episodes ago.
Oh, that's true. Or when they were out at the football game when they first had that game and they were watching on television. Wasn't she there?
I forgot
Wasn't they
about
both there
that.
and he was there?
And Patience was there too. So look at that. I stand corrected. I stand corrected. They got that
Yeah.
one little story. They got that one little story. Coop got that, and she got the fact that he
Yeah.
preach. Oh my gosh! But I just thought that was so funny because I'm like,
That was
why y'all
funny.
getting up? Y'all can sit back down, honey. If Spit's not getting up, y'all don't gotta get up. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I just want
Yeah, I
to.
was
Why am I
like,
laughing? Because we need levity on this podcast. Nobody wants to cry for 40 minutes.
I also think about too, like they could have, if comedy wise, I was side note, I'm glad that Denise was there. Like I'm glad they showed
Yes.
her. Like I was like, I want more Denise, more than Grace, but I want more Denise. Like I would
Talk
love to
about
see
it.
her actually check up on Laura or check up on the kids. Like that would be kind of cool to see her do that. And then I wonder if GW is gonna actually stay home now. Like you see, like what's gonna happen with the house. Like
I
there's
think
a
we
lot of unanswered
should.
questions. So
I think we need GW at least through Jordan, like live in Jordan's episodes because I think that he brings a good balance to, and to your point, Denise does as well. They all bring a good balance to like what's going on. I'm gonna say this real quick to you because you brought up Grace. I don't want to forget this point. Why was GW centering Grace as Billy's best friend? Like Grace was just like, "How are you?"
oh
And
yeah, she did
overall,
say that.
I had a really big problem with the lack of check-ins that I felt were going towards the Baker family. Or if somebody was mentioning like, if Spencer would mention like we got to think about the Baker family, people would be like, "Yeah, but and I'm just like, "No, like we actually please like
Yeah,
let's center them. Like we don't need to be centering Grace as Billy's quote unquote best friend." But and we do know that
literally. And
GW felt at peace, what she told Jordan. We'll go back to GW. We talked
mm,
about Laura, Spencer, real quick. Folks were checking on Spencer. Dylan saying, it's okay to not be okay. Asking Spencer how he's doing.
mm,
Um, Again, Liv checking on Spencer. I think like Coop, Dylan, and Grace check on Spencer again. And Spencer, like we mentioned, was same as Jordan, like pushing down his grief and running, which he eventually tells Dylan, right? Running because if he doesn't run anymore, he'll stop and think, and his mind will take him back to the call that he declined with Coach Baker and the voicemail that he received, and that would have been his last
mm.
conversation with Coach Baker. Um, I'll say this,
Wait,
Spence.
wait.
Oh
Sorry.
no, you
I know. Go ahead.
Spencer saying that
I
he
thought
was
they reached.
built for moments like this is heartbreaking. Him talking about how he's lost Sean and Corey and
Oh yeah.
Coach Baker. And you forget like the timeline of the show that it's been. He said 2 years. I think it's been about two and a half. Two and a half where they are right now.
Yeah.
Because it was like
It's weird.
it is weird.
Mm.
It is weird, but it has, if he's rounding down to years, just 2 years, and in the span of 2 years he's lost all of these people, and to get to a place where you're just like, I'm built for moments like this was crazy.
You know, he reminded me of.
What?
He reminded me of when. Side note: I watched The Flash, so he reminded
Period.
me of when Barry lost Ralph,
Mm,
and he was just like, he everyone kept asking him, is he okay? You know how Iris was asking, he was just like, I'm okay, I'm okay. All this, like, it was just guilting on him. And like he was like, I already lost my mom, I already lost my dad, I lost everyone else in my life, I'm okay. But then
right.
eventually he broke down, like at the towards the end, and was like, even he went to therapy and talked about it too. So I felt like everything that Spencer felt was valid because like eventually that's going to weigh on him. And I would love to see if they had like him go back to therapy and talk about that
Same.
because like he didn't get the phone call. He was his last phone call. Then you have your ex girlfriend, you have your your brother, and then Mrs. Baker. So they are still a part of your life. So you do see them every other day. So that weighs on you too because it's like, well, you and Spencer created this. Y'all, he got you in the house. You went to school. You went to Beverly. You came back to Crenshaw because of Billy. Like you have been a part of his life for a long time. So and he has molded you. You still go to him all the time for advice. Y'all could be mad at each other and still turn back around and still be oh, this and that, but now he doesn't have that. So it's like in his mind, he's probably just feeling like, man, like, what was the fight worth it? Was everything that we said worth it? Because at the end, I didn't get getting getting get a chance to say goodbye. Like we said was, I just need time, and you don't even get that time anymore. So it's like
Ooh,
it sucks because he couldn't even move.
that'll preach. That'll preach. I just need time, and now you don't even got that time. Ooh, that hurt me. That hurt me deep. Um, no, you're absolutely right.
Literally,
And
because he couldn't move.
he couldn't move, and something that I keep coming back to again, sort of blocking, thinking about the blocking of this episode, is that he like he was present. And I think somebody said this, one of the characters said this in the show. He's been present but not really present, right? And the fact that he was sitting so far away at the
Mm-hmm.
funeral, the fact that he wasn't sitting near everybody before the funeral started, like he was looking out the window, Grace checked on him, then he sort of brushed her off and went in,
Mm-hmm.
but was sitting in the last row away from everybody, like he was in a, I think he was in a row by himself. And then you look at the ending,
Mm-hmm.
and he usually, what Jordan was doing in terms of Jordan bringing, and when Jordan had said like, "Oh, I have all these people here with me," um, that's something that we would see Spencer doing, or that's something that we would see them doing together. Like Spencer would be leading, um, and
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't even like sit in the crowd in the community, like he was watching it from the fence. And I think that says
Mm-hmm.
so much, is that he like they're using these angles, they're using this spacing to point out the fact that he's like quietly distancing himself from people. Um and I'm so
Mm-hmm.
curious.
Which that would be the other. That's crazy part
Yeah, because I don't feel like Spencer is usually the type to
because we're used to seeing
distance.
that with other characters.
Yeah, I don't think Spencer is usually the type to distance
Mm-mm.
himself. Like I think we've seen him grieve before, and he'll actually like go to people for advice, like tell me how I can fix this, tell me how I can move past this. And obviously one of the people that he would go to the most is Billy, and so now he doesn't have that anymore. And so now we really see
Mm-hmm.
him like
Mm-hmm.
sort of brushing everybody else off, and sort of
Kind of
quietly distancing himself. um so that'll be interesting to see, and I definitely think they
mm-hmm.
need to bring Dr. Spears back, and we'll see if they do. But yeah, I'm curious to see where this storyline this storyline goes. Um,
You know.
lastly, Laura Baker, the person who I think, let me say this, the parent who I think has sacrificed a lot, maybe sacrificed the most, and
Mm-hmm.
has been there for everybody up until this point. And it was great to see people, and I understand like it's grief, but it was still great to see people not judge her choices in this episode.
Yeah, they were supporting her.
They were supporting her.
Like when she was about the blue suit, that's not his favorite suit.
Yep. When she got angry, getting back to her grief and how the actors showed grief, I think I think Monet did a really great job. I don't think that this episode was, because we have like 3 more episodes of it like centering on grief specifically for characters. Um and they're going to be dealing with this through the rest of the season, realistically through the rest of the series. Um but we have like
Mm-hmm.
4 episodes centered on grief. This was the first one. And I don't feel like the intention of this episode was to show all of the emotions. I feel like the intention of this episode was to get out how numb Laura was feeling the entire time. Um,
Yeah.
And I feel like they like there was just so many choices. Like Laura, the character, didn't even speak. Like we heard her in the voiceover, but she didn't even speak until the suit debacle,
Mm.
which is crazy, right? Like,
Yeah, like that took her. Yeah.
and it took so much energy and it took so much effort for her to even get to a place to speak. It took we were like what 20 minutes in by the time she spoke, or
Mm.
15 minutes in by the time she spoke. And that
Mm.
is crazy because we're just not used to seeing Laura
Yeah.
like this. And like Monet going from like yelling to
Mm.
whispering to like exhausted. Um it was crazy. It was wild to see. What did you think about that? What did you think about how Monet played Laura and how Laura dealt with it? And we've already touched on that she really struggled with Jabari, really struggled with keeping in her anger, was really struggling with like,
Mm.
I don't want Billy, like I don't want to share Billy right now. And I honestly was like, she was just like, honestly, I just want the funeral to be done with. And by the time she spoke, she was just like, all right, forget it. Tomorrow, I picked the date. The funeral's tomorrow. And I just don't know. I feel like all of those things were so true to like grief. Like, just get this. I want this to be out of my mind and away from my mind.
Mm. Yeah, I really enjoyed her scenes. I felt everything was valid of everything she was feeling, especially the whole part of Jabari. I got it. Yeah, it was kind of rude at first a little bit, but I got where she was coming from because in her mind she's thinking, well, this is the person that, basically my husband died for.
Hmm.
So why is he in my house? Why am I doing this? Then like she's very quiet. Then she just like even when she was at the they were first walked in and she was at the her I think it was Jordan her Laura, Liv, they were all at the door.
Hmm.
She was like breathing in, and she was like, "Okay, let me get through this today," because it was just like a lot for her to get through. And then her having them talk to GW, and then her just being like, "Okay, I like you said, I don't want to share them with the community. I want to, have that personal time for myself. I've had that for over the past five 5 years.
Right.
So then it was like interesting that she didn't get an attitude with her family because I felt at first she was gonna get an attitude towards Spencer or in like
Yeah,
a
and she was like,
resentment way.
Spencer's been
Like
great.
I could have saw that. Yeah. And I was like, well, y'all moved your entire stuff around for Spencer. And then I thought like something, that would have been something, but I'm glad they didn't do that. They just kind of let them be together and like, show that he was really supporting the family instead of just having like it be resentment towards everybody
Yeah.
and it would be completely different.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Quiet is like she was harsh to Jabari, but I do want to say that like she was harsh, but
Mm-hmm.
even when she was talking to GW, she was just like, I know it's not Jabari's fault. So it was never about it being, I feel like, Jabari's fault. It was just about Jabari being a reminder of Billy. And to that point, I do think people had a reaction to her sort of not wanting Jabari to be at the repast or not wanting to see him. But also, I get sort of
Mm-hmm.
both sides of this because I'm just like Laura also said she literally did not want anybody there except close friends and family. And she
Yes.
said that a long time ago. So it's just like why don't
Mm-hmm.
like let's not even have the opportunity for this to occur where she could, you know, get mad is just trying to appease her at every turn. So I understood that reaction from her when Jabari walked through the door because I feel like, obviously it was Jabari a bit more because that's who Billy saved, and obviously she comes to the end like we talked about, and she's just like, this is your chance, your opportunity. I need a commitment from you. But I think have anybody else walk in there and she still
Mm-hmm.
would have went off, right? She went off about the sweet potatoes. So um anybody else that was a close
Literally
friend,
it was all
it was
triggering for
all
her.
triggering. It was all trigger. The blue suit
Mm-hmm.
was triggering. She went off of Jordan. Layla was just like, wait, the blue suit wasn't there. I was there. Um, so yeah.
And they cut the scene.
And they cut the seed where they went to go get the blue suit. Um, this is such a small detail,
Mm-hmm.
but I just, as an actor, I really, really love this. It's such a small moment, but please go back and watch Coop talking to Laura about Darius and holding down at work. Laura's face.
Oh yeah, I was like, what does that do?
Yo, Laura was just like,
I was
if you
like, y'all
don't
are
get
really
out of
trying me
my
today.
face right now with this ridiculousness about Darius holding down the fort. And I was just like, that to me,
I was looked at her.
to me, that's the sign of great acting is like when you can take these smaller moments and really like show
Mm-hmm.
that you're living this person's life, right? Like again, Laura's face. I think that she rolled her eye. Like I think that she squinted her eyes. Like, are you really talking to me about this right now?
About work,
Right now at this moment.
about work in a case. Like,
Crazy.
you should be glad. I was like, cool.
Coop was about to get
You just
kicked
got
out.
over
Like, you
the
think that was
preach
just reserved
case you
for
have to work at
Jabari?
the end of the
Look,
month.
Spencer had like 5 more seconds if he had waited like 5 more seconds to enter the door. Laura would have went off on Coop. That's how she was looking.
Yeah, she probably would have. I would have laughed. I was like, girl, this is the time or the place to be talking about some work.
Yeah.
When I just buried my husband. What?
So yeah, hats off to her.
Tripping
Hats off
early.
to Monet for really digging in. Again, I just have to shout out this once again is that she was just like the cat. Like Liv flinched in one of the scenes where she was yelling, and that's sort of how the cast was reacting. I think all day when they were shooting these scenes is that they like Monet has never really had, as Laura has never really had to raise her voice, has never really had to be like harsh, right? She was harsh with Billy a little bit, but not even to this degree.
Mm-hmm.
So she's just never had
Mm-hmm.
to play that before, so it was shocking for a lot of the cast who worked together for 5 years to see this other this other layer of Laura and this other layer that Monet was bringing um, to the role. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
we were able GW, which again is why I think he should remain for the next couple of episodes, is that GW was such a calming force, and it was great to see how far their relationship has come because he was not a fan at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great to see him be calm. It was great to hear that Billy and GW ended on a great note. They called each other every Wednesday and ended each call with "I love you." I thought that was a really really great touch, and eventually like that encouraged Laura to share her grief, with the
Mm-hmm.
community. And you know what? I think this is a good place to wrap up. Is that she ended, in this, the memorial. Which, by the way, if we forgot to say, Layla got Sean Stockman to perform because Boyz II Men was one of Billy's favorites. But at this memorial where they're having fireworks and everything like that, um, Laura said like she tried to push the community away, and I feel like that's half true. Like I feel like she was maybe pushing the Crenshaw community away. But one of the best parts of this episode has been something that we've been talking about
Mm-hmm.
is the way that her immediate community, Spencer, Denise, and Grace, as much as it pains me to admit it, uh, Carter, Layla, like her community was there for her. And I think that extends to
Mm-hmm.
Crenshaw, but Beverly and Crenshaw and the people that are in her immediate circle did 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 show up for her, and I was happy about that because I know a ton of people were just like wondering how is it. I think that people should give the Bakers space, and I think that they had made a really good case for why the Bakers should not have space and why it was so important to have everybody there, um,
Mm-hmm.
to be there for them all. And yeah, that was the episode.
Yes, for sure.
It was a long one. It went by super fast. And we still got 3 of these brief episodes left to
Mm-hmm.
go. Thank goodness there's a break.
Liv's episode probably gonna tear me
Oh,
apart.
same. So much same. So much.
Her crying on that Ferris wheel.
Whew.
I'm not ready for that. And then I'm trying to figure out what was a panic attack. And I'm like, if she having a panic attack, in the car. It just, I don't know, the car scene was a little weird. I was just like, I guess she's having a panic attack. I'm not sure what she's
Yeah,
doing. I
with
don't know.
the I'm interested to see it too. I'm interested, and then like the floor, like is that gonna come at the beginning? Is that gonna come at the end? We don't even know with Layla and Jordan. Um, I'm gonna be gutted.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about, is he staying there? Yeah, because we're supposed to what, get flashbacks.
Yeah, yeah. So we gonna see. We don't got the synopsis, so y'all gonna have to wait for that. But that's what it is. We'll see you March 13th. Thanks for listening to Kimberly and I's review and recap of episode 512, Lost One. We're going to come back to you with predictions once the synopsis drops. And forgot to mention this, Liv does know about Jordala, so we'll talk about that too during the predictions. And I think it'll come back up maybe in the next episode for sure. So, and stay tuned for the next episode.